first time. Hi. Uh, Welcome to the evening edition of the Jonathan Baruch stream. Unless you are in Southeast Asia, in which case, morning. I would. So today's an unusual stream. Hello, Pedro. How you doing? Um, First of all, it's not anywhere near my normal time for streaming. But second of all, it is the second time we're going to be reading aloud from my dad's book, Eat the Strawberries. Face your challenges with Zenish calm and confidence. Which, if you caught the last time we read from this, I don't think it's fair to call it a self-help book. It's it's like if it's like if a philosophy book didn't make you want to be anywhere else. I think that's a good log line for it. I'm doing well. I just refilled my water bottle so that I will be hydrated during the read. Oh, let's get some music playing. And let's play some Wordle. Alright. Starting with good old play. Today is the day. Pedro. Is there more to that sentence? I can't tell. What? Why did my mind go low-tad? That is not a valid word, and given the clues, and it's also a Pokemon. Oh, Pedro's your guess. Got it. No, wrong. Hey, here we go. Loins. I bet it's loins. Oh, I can't believe it's not loins. Weird. Rumor. Oh, that's right. Rulor. Fuck. Good guess, but I don't know if that's gonna be it. I wonder if it accepts fucks. It does, unless maybe it just... No, it does. It accepts fucks. Fucks. That's good to know. Oh, I think I just talked right through an ad break. Oh well. As far as I know, I don't actually have viewer numbers turned on, because I find it distracting and frankly irrelevant. As far as I know, only Pedro's here and he subscribed, so it's fine. I'll try to keep an eye on that for during the read, though. Roll. Scroll? No S, but I don't love using an S when I don't know. How about droll? There we go. Okay, so O is either the first or last letter. There are not many words where that's true. One minute of ads left. Oh well. All anybody's missing is me not solving Wordle. Da, da. My mind is not good at this. I am definitely better at it off stream, but not by very much. distracted by Emmy Evans right now. Oh, this track vaguely reminds me of some of the Final Fantasy XIII soundtracks. I should add that to this playlist. Those are good tracks. One time I saw somebody make the criticism that Final Fantasy XIII doesn't have memorable music, and I was like, maybe you don't remember it because you just heard it for the first time. I think you've got some nostalgia goggles on, because Nobuo Uematsu is great, don't get me wrong, but Masashi Hamauzu is also great. Oh, ice cream sandwich, that sounds amazing. The music was one of the things people didn't criticize. One person did! Yeah, I'd like to do a video on that battle theme. It's crazy. It goes from minor into the relative mixolydian. I can't think of another. I don't know of another piece of music where I'm aware that that's what it does. I've never knowingly heard a relative mixolydian and minor in the same piece before. Granted, I haven't checked the scales for most music I've ever heard, but I'm willing to bet it's not a common combination. Somewhere in the ether. Ow. Dolo. I don't know. Oh, D's not first. Oddly. Woo! Okay. Alright. Good. We did it. Alright. Let's get cozy. Let me check. How long is this chapter? Because last time we did it was only for part of the stream and we got through 40 pages. Woo! Let's see. How long is this one? This one's actually pretty short. Well, this is really short. Okay, so we'll definitely do more than just this one section. Okay. Where's my chapstick? I'd love to have some chapstick right now. Before I get started. Can't find it. We're gonna open a new tube. Time to eat some strawberries. Actually, just, this is kind of a bummer, but my dad just earlier today texted my sister and me that he was at a memorial service for, like, a friend's daughter or something, and he had to, like, step out because it was super sad, and he was just reminding us again, like, eat the strawberries, we're not here long. The author's perspective. To hear what I have to say to you in the personal way intended, it will be useful to know something about how I came to have the view and voice you find in these pages. Here's the executive summary. Being rational and having intellectual integrity matter quite a lot to me. So do passion, pleasure, creativity, openness, humility, love, and moral integrity. I refuse to give up on either reason or feeling, so I have done my best to render them stronger together, instead of letting them be on opposing teams. Quote, "Follow your heart, but take your brain with you." Alfred Adler. Although operating from different premises and reaching different conclusions, both of my parents were very attentive to moral principles. In my father, this looked a lot like heavy obligation and tradition. In my mother, it looked a lot like soaring idealism and creativity. But each of them took very seriously what it means to live a moral life. Each did the best they could to live up to the standards they valued, and each was imperfect in doing so, as humans always are. Likewise, my siblings and I each became amateur moral philosophers. We each do our best to live up to our own conclusions, and we each sometimes come up short by our own measures. In the course of my life, I have undergone several periods of deep thought and personal change in the interests of identifying and more fully embodying the best authentic version of myself that I can. More gently, I am intermittently working on this in small pieces all of the time. My primary interest in this book, in my coaching practice, and in my own life, is to bring philosophical ideas to bear on difficult decisions and emotional challenges, to bring more calm, comfort, pleasure, and satisfaction into my daily life. I want to be I'm like off camera. I want to be stressed less often and less intensely, to handle stress better when it recurs anyway, and to more automatically and more frequently create joy even in the midst of the ordinary. I want to be a better me for the direct benefit to myself, and for the benefit of others. Your goals might be different. I certainly don't get to vote on what your goals are. But like you, I do get to wish. I hope that something like these are also your primary goals. If these were the primary goals of every one of us, actively pursued daily, and therefore the primary characteristic of the society we collectively produce daily, what a marvelous society that would be to live in. There are many who think otherwise, who see that as some sort of BS, unrealistic and undesirable nonsense, or even evil. But I don't think those are the people who are reading this book. Here is how I came to have the perspective and goals that I have. There is a building in Manhattan on the edge of Central Park that was a sacred place for me during my elementary school years. The cupped wearing of its stone steps bore witness to the hundreds of millions of people who had made the pilgrimage to and through this holy place. Education endorsed it with an endless stream of field trip footsteps sounding through its huge, echoing hallways and display rooms. Students endorsed it by excitedly flocking from one exhibit to the next, or by standing in front of a single display in quiet awe, or with a gasp of paused, pointed finger. My mother endorsed it by taking me there sometimes when school did not. I really like how this does feel like someone reminiscing on their musings. Yeah, it's very personal. It's not like, I have figured it out, and here's how you can too. What is Stephen Colbert's book? I Am America, and so can you. The society that built the American Museum of Natural History imbued it with the respectful grandeur of oversized doors, cathedral-height ceilings, and visitors' hushed library voices. The latter was sometimes punctuated by sounds of childhood enthusiasm, which also spoke well of the place. Its old-world style and its sheer size showed me that the idea of it was cherished before the reality of it existed. They had to make it, because they so valued exploration, knowledge, learning, science, and human achievement. It was a temple to those things, a disseminator of both knowledge and attitude, an inspiration to generations. It was the most special reason I felt lucky to grow up in New York City, and in America, and to be a human. I was positively romantic about it. In addition to public elementary school, I attended a religious school and went to worship services both weekly and on various holidays. I was romantic about this too. I loved my religion and felt deeply grateful to be born into it. Whether in my local Jewish sanctuary or in the science sanctuary on the edge of Central Park, I was always more serious about trying to understand ultimate truths and the human condition than any kid or adult I knew. Because of the close attention I paid to these things, by the time I was 7 years old, the honeymoon among them was sadly over. Science, religion, and my observations of people around me began to conflict, and that conflict escalated over subsequent years. I was unable to understand how most people were passionately, viscerally attached to their religion, yet satisfied to live as if they had only flipped through the picture book version of it in a pediatrician's waiting room. It seemed to me that if it were truly their religion, they would know more about it and live up to it more fully. Some of the people I knew were more religiously informed and observant. Like everyone else, these religiously attentive people thought of themselves as intelligent and rational. Who doesn't? But here's the rub. A conventional religionist holds that of the world's 55,000 historical religions, thousands of which are active today, all of them are wrong except for theirs. They hold that almost every single person who has ever lived has been wrong about the most important thing there is, yet they just happen to be so lucky that their religion, which they almost universally acquired simply as an accident of birth, is the one out of tens of thousands that is uniquely right. When the subject is their religion, they just know that the physical sciences, psychology, sociology, anthropology, history, archaeology, and logical thinking are invalid or irrelevant, and that bringing them up is unconscionably rude or even evil. I don't think that's what an intelligent and rational being looks like. Do you? Over time, in bits and pieces, some people quietly let me in on a big secret. I think it was my sister who first clued me in. According to this quite popular but usually unvoiced secret, keeping religion and rationality in separate compartments is okay, as is picking and choosing the bits one happens to like about religion. It's okay because it's really about culture, custom, and comfort, and not about the alleged absolute truths the religion claims, unless one happens to like this one or that one, in which case those bits revert to being God's own truth. Although this position is offensive to conservative and orthodox religionists, at least it is intended to be candidly honest about most people who identify with a particular religion. But if this was someone's genuine position on the matter, why were they still less than humble about their own beliefs and choices, and less than welcoming of the beliefs and choices of others? They seem... Just checking, an ad starting soon. They seem to have entirely missed the generosity of love thy neighbor as thyself, even in the midst of admitting that they themselves are just sort of muddling along. Quote, They have certain fixed notions about the past. Any change would be blasphemy in their eyes, even if it were the truth. They don't want the truth. They want their traditions. Isaac Asimov. Quote, The truth will set you free. Jesus. Quote, It's the truth I am after, and the truth never harmed anyone. What harms us is to persist in self-deceit and ignorance. Marcus Aurelius. If the truth will set us free, but we abandon truth, and we abandon reason as a means of knowing truth, does it really matter if we do that for religious fealty, or if we do it for culture, custom, and comfort? Isn't the important thing that the truth can set us free, and that the untruth keeps us unfree? Isn't the important thing about a properly recognized real truth? Isn't the important thing that a properly recognized real truth creates common ground while competing untruths fuel fear, oppression, hatred, brutality, and war? Why do people insist that traditional stories are vastly better than simply saying there are some questions we can't currently answer? Where do people get the idea that seeking answers rationally means the death of wonder and awe, art and love, community and connection, hope and meaning, inspiration, inexpressible experience, and a meaningful life? Isn't considering religion, culture, custom, and the comfort of the familiar more important than... Sorry. Isn't considering religion, culture, custom, and the comfort of the familiar to be more... This is not a well-structured sentence, I'm sorry. Isn't considering religion, culture, custom, and the comfort of the familiar more important than truth just tribalism? Is tribalism to be held up as our highest calling? It has been for millennia, and it is resurging in the United States and in many other countries at the time of this writing. The result of tribalism has been war, genocide, class struggle, oppression of individual differences, and generally profound suffering. How has tribalism served us? Must we refuse to progress? Now he knows to have you on hand for the next book. He tried to have me on hand for this one. I feel bad that I wasn't able to do more for him. Mental illness is a bitch. I am getting better, though. I think. It's only been a few days, but I've felt better. A lot better. I'm gonna wait for the ad break to end. I wonder if... I'll have to check. When I export to VOD, I wonder if the ad breaks... That wouldn't make sense if the ad breaks, like, nixed it out. Well, and, like, because I know that we have basically no Europe viewers tonight. And I expect many will want to see the VOD, so I hope that it doesn't, like, cut out the ad breaks. I don't think it does, though. It is always a weird spiral. Progress isn't a line, or even a curve, it's a blah, 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 blah. And that's just the human condition. Ad break ends in 1 minute and 17 seconds. I'm impatient. Footnote. Tribalism was useful when tribes were the largest social structure in use. It told us who was likely to treat us as a companion, and who was likely to compete for food, shelter, and mating opportunities. That's why we are tribal by nature. But in a world in which we live with thousands and billions of others instead of a few hundred, tribalism is literally why we spend so much time defaming, oppressing, and killing each other. The shift to domesticating crops and living non-nomadically put tribalism on a one-way path to being more harmful than helpful. It's not just because people are mean or uneducated or taught to be vile, although those are critical factors. At its core, tribalism is instinctual. Therefore, it's not going to go away. We need to focus on how to constructively, cooperatively, intentionally counteract it. Why are we not progressing beyond seeing other as enemy? Why is it taboo to bring our best tools, objective observation, critical analysis, and a flexible, generous spirit, to the task of an individual, well-lived life, with the development of a good society? I didn't have well-formed language for it as a child, but I had this general perspective within the first few years of elementary school. So began for me a literal lifetime of thinking very seriously about religion, reality, and the human condition. Although I did not plan it this way, it is unsurprising in hindsight that I was well along in a major of biology before I ended up switching to psychology, and then did graduate work in that discipline. I have always been passionate about the scientific and rational about the phenomenological. My goodness. Progress is a Mario Kart driver avoiding a blue shell. I just heard about that like an hour ago. I think that's awesome game design. I really like that addition. I like it specifically because it's not easy to do. It's not really a blue shell nerf. It's just an increase in interactivity, which is cool. Before, during, and after college, I talked with friends. I talked with door-knocking evangelists. I talked with rabbis and ministers. I read the entire Old and New Testaments in scholarly translations with extensive footnotes. I spent some time again as a member of a Jewish congregation. I spent some time as a member and then as a lay minister of a Unitarian Universalist congregation. I read tiny bits of the Quran and tiny bits about, I don't even know how to pronounce this, Baha'i? I'm sorry. Wicca, Hinduism, Sikhism, and Buddhism. I visited India, Israel, and Rome. In my late 40s, my then girlfriend told me I was not as alone as I felt. She said that there were a lot of people with a perspective similar to mine, that I was a Zenist and just didn't know it. Not only did I not know it, but I didn't even know that word. I said something along the lines of, huh? She said my views were consistent with Zen, without the supernatural features of Buddhism. I had no idea what this meant, but I trusted her, so I decided to look into it, to see what I could discover there. Over a period of years, what I increasingly discovered was me. She was right. There was a lot of overlap between what I had worked out on my own and what Zen or Buddhism more generally articulated better than I ever could. Better yet, with secular versions of Buddhist teachings as a stimulus, I got to go, and am still going, beyond what I had worked out on my own. I don't identify as a secular Buddhist because that phrase would say I am a Buddhist of the secular variety. It's more accurate to put it the other way around. I am a Zenish secularist. I'm not committed to Buddhism, and pleased when secular findings and reasoning turn out to be supportive. Conversely, I am committed to ethics, reason, and empiricism, and am pleased to have found that many Buddhist teachings are consistent with that. I find in Buddhism a wonderful expression of compassionate values true to actual human nature, a wealth of psychologically astute and useful observations, and a coherent philosophy one can be guided by and act upon in real life. It's not too religious for a passionately unreligious person like me. At the same time, if one does have a religious identity, no conflict arises with that identity because secular Buddhism neither requires nor directly opposes any faith-based beliefs. I have found Buddhist teachings to be very articulate and helpful. In them, I am reminded that as personal as my experience is, it's not unique to me. And I am not alone in what I value and take pleasure in, or alone in my pains and problems, or on my own in seeking solutions. And so I have come to write this book with the intention of sharing a Zenish view of life, hoping that will be helpful to you too. Key concepts. For more than 20 years, I have increasingly learned about and drawn on Buddhist teachings to further develop my thinking, to act on my values more fully, with less effort, to love better, enjoy more, and feel less shocked and disturbed in a world that sometimes runs amok and is sometimes just plain mean. To be clear, such a project is the work of a lifetime for each of us, and I certainly don't always get it right, but values, philosophy, and psychological insights articulated in Buddhist teachings have accelerated my progress. I hope this book about having a Zenish perspective will accelerate yours. Let's find out. Many key concepts in Buddhism are so abstract or paradoxical that they are hard to convey in any language. Perhaps this is one reason for the value Zen places on the intuitive over the explicit. In fact, Buddhist koans are specifically designed for the purpose of moving one from a failure of linear thought to an intuitive aha moment. Thus, as you read, please do so attentively, but also with a generous, open spirit. Pause to think and question, ponder and explore. Let things come to you, and don't pursue everything in a strictly linear way. I guess you should be checking the VODs then. Partner with me on this, knowing it is inescapable, and as it should be, that in the end, you will reach your own conclusions. When we hit upon a broad philosophical point, pause to think about some specific practical applications. When presented with specifics, please extrapolate to general principles. Mentally apply principles in additional scenarios, noting where they are helpful and where they are not. Engaging actively while reading this book will produce a much richer experience for you. Reading the book will give you a good approximation of what I think. Engaging with it fully will help you observe and further develop what you think. Quote, "Anyone reading this should travel on with me where we agree, search with me where we are unsure, and speak up if he finds me astray. In this way, we may jointly proceed." St. Augustine. Non-uniqueness. What we find in Buddhism or in any religion can also be found in varying subsets and combinations in other religions, philosophies, and psychologies. Each of these is a unique collection of insights, not a collection of unique. Each of these is a unique collection of insights, not a collection of unique insights. From the oldest religion we know of, Hinduism, to modern secularism, from ancient Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, I'm so sorry, Greek people, and Epictetus, to modern entertainers like Joan Baez and Helena Bonham Carter, quotes spread throughout this book show that the most divine thoughts and feelings are not the products of God or gods, or the exclusive property of any particular religion or time. We see that they recur across diverse cultures and throughout history because they are products of human experience. Because most readers of this book will be more familiar with religions other than Buddhism, I frequently compare a point about Buddhism with a similar or contrasting aspect of other religions. The reference I use most often is Christianity, simply because most readers of this book will be familiar with Christianity, whether they themselves are Christian or not. My purpose in making these comparisons is usually to ensure that Buddhism does not come across as exotic or odd as compared to what the reader finds familiar, but sometimes it is to invite the reader to rethink the familiar. Greece condemns you. As noted earlier, Buddhism and Stoicism overlap quite a lot. They both have strong concepts of the ultimate unity of all people and things, advocate a life with ethics based on similar values, and are very naturalistic and humanistic. They agree that a clear view of reality is the essential thing to strive for, and that we need a great deal of self-awareness and self-control to stop our various biases and illusions from leading us astray. They both tell us that it is not our circumstances, but our responses to our circumstances where we have the most control over the depth and duration of both our happiness and our suffering. Like Zen in particular, among the many forms of Buddhism, Stoicism holds that the measure of a person is their behavior rather than their discourse. Discourse is an aid to self-improvement, but not a substitute for it. Secular Zen. Secular. Some people have come to misunderstand the word secular as a scary, bad word, but all it means is not of any religion. Footnote. While secular just means not religious, the term secularism refers to a movement that is anti-religious. If you think that secularism is some wild, new, bad, scary, crazy idea, note that it is actually a multi-millennia tradition of its own, going back about 2,500 years or more to the 6th or 5th century BCE in both Asia and Europe. He just had to say BCE, couldn't be BC. Secularism reached an historic peak during a period rightly recognized as the Age of Enlightenment, or the Age of Reason, in the 16 and 1700s, with such notable thinkers as Francis Bacon, René Descartes, César Beccaria, Denis Diderot, David Hume, Immanuel Kant, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. I'm so sorry, I should know how to say these names. Half of these are white people. John Locke, Montesquieu, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Hugo Grotius, Baruch Spinoza, and Voltaire. Secularism inspired both the American and French revolutions, greatly influenced by Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and the United States Declaration of Independence, and has been a constant force against racism, sexism, and prejudice of all kinds. Those who think legitimacy comes from ancient roots, continuous presence, profound thought, and historical impact must find secularism to be as legitimate as any religion in the panoply of competing worldviews. Is that how you pronounce panoply? I need to be as smart as my dad. Secularity is freedom, not evil. As one example, your shoes are secular. They contribute to your freedom of movement. Further, you are free to have different shoes for different situations. No shoe has ever said, "Thou shalt have no other shoes before me," or threatened you with eternal damnation in hell if you go shoeless. No matter how attached a person might be to their faith, no matter how much they prefer their doctor to have similar religious inclinations of their own, they also depend on that doctor having a lot of training and experience that is not of any religion. Some will consider it essential to ask God to bless the new bridge over the big river, but they still want the bridge's human planners to have studied a lot of engineering principles that are not of any religion. They still want its construction crew to ensure that it complies with mechanical principles that are not of any religion. Perhaps you think it reflects a proper understanding of God's significance and a good use of his power to bless your preferred sports team at the expense of their competitor. If God is who you think he is, I don't think tilting the outcome of sporting events is really his purpose. On the other hand, when your preferred teams put a lot of time into secular exercise and practice, you recognize this as fit to purpose and necessary. Your car and the road you drive it on are secular. Your winter jacket is secular. The hinges on your front door are secular. Your medications are secular. Your computer and phone are secular. The scissors used when you get your hair cut are secular. Staircases are secular. You might not want things to be only secular, but all of us highly value and greatly depend upon secular things all the time. The secular and the religious compete with each other in some contexts, but they also peacefully coexist everywhere we look. Having grown up Catholic, it's quite interesting hearing more about other perspectives. Can't say I'm really anything nowadays. I'm finding that more and more people our age, especially in more urban areas, are having that approach. And I consider that a good thing. Obviously, I'm very biased. And I don't mean to imply that being religious is a bad thing. That is not my belief at all. It was when I was young and stupid, but I have learned. I think that a broad sense of a decrease in religious identity and commitment, I think that's good for the world. But I do not think that any one person's decision to believe one... I don't even like calling beliefs decisions. I'm gonna go on my own tangent here. Less extremism for sure, yeah. I don't think it's possible to choose beliefs. I think it is possible to choose to engage in critical thinking, and I think it's possible to choose to be honest about how close or different you are to your values. I think those two things cause all beliefs. If you change those two things, your beliefs will change. And I really think that that's where all creed comes from. It's just, how willing are you to think critically? And how willing are you to change your behavior based on the conclusions you come to when you think critically? I don't think anybody ever chooses, I am going to be Catholic now, or I am going to be agnostic now, or I am going to be atheist or Jewish or Hindu. I think you just discover that you are one day. And another day you might discover that you've changed. But you never set out to change what you believe. That doesn't make sense. You believe it. Not counting the numerous external factors like family and all that, but even still, like, even if you are pressured into a religion, even if you're, like, let's use dramatic language, even if somebody indoctrinates you from an early age to only consider one religion to be the ultimate truth and nothing else matters, you still didn't pick that belief. You still didn't make a conscious decision to think those things are true. And I'm not disagreeing with you. I know we're saying the same thing. I just wanted to be clear. Where were we? You can be afraid to deny that instilled lesson. Yes, you can. And even that in itself, I don't think is a choice. But choosing bravery and discomfort in the name of a greater good, that's a choice. And that will lead you to changing your beliefs. You didn't mean to derail me. You can't derail me. This is my house. I go where I don't know where this bit is going. Let's get back to the book. You're fine. Zen. If you are not a Buddhist, you might well ask, how will Buddhist help? If you are not a Buddhist, you might well ask, how will Buddhist ideas help me, a non-Buddhist? As I mentioned in the introduction, I'm not a Buddhist. In this book, I present selected Buddhist teachings that I and hundreds of thousands, millions of other non-Buddhists have found helpful, regardless of our varying religions, regardless of our various religious, non-religious, or anti-religious inclinations. I have hand-picked the extractions from Buddhism presented here for their accessibility and utility outside of Buddhism. If that sounds like cultural misappropriation, please see the chapter titled Secular Zen in Context for an in-depth discussion on that subject. The Dalai Lama does not consider it misappropriation, and neither do a number of other prominent Buddhist teachers. In fact, they approve and encourage the utilization of Buddhist concepts in combination with other religions and in the absence of any religion. Here are just two examples. Quote, "Don't try to use what you learn from Buddhism to be a Buddhist. Use it to be a better whatever you already are. His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama." Quote, "There is a misconception that Buddhism is a religion in which you worship Buddha. Buddhism is a practice, like yoga. I met a Catholic priest who lives in a Buddhist monastery in France. He told me that Buddhism made him a better Christian. I love that." Thich Nhat Hanh. If you are a Buddhist, Zen or otherwise, you might wonder how much this non-Buddhist author will offend you with his ignorance and misinterpretation of your faith tradition. I hope not to offend at all. In the spirit of the quotes just above, out of a deep sense of appreciation for many Buddhist teachings, my goal is to share them with people who might not otherwise have a chance to benefit from their immense value. Buddhist teachings are increasingly making their way into the lives of Christians, Jews, Muslims, and other religionists, as well as agnostics, atheists, and secular society. How can this be when these various religious positions are so at odds with each other? Most religions are primarily concerned with how God or gods create and act upon the world, and how we can please and petition them. These religions run on collections of stories in which the main protagonist is God, or a set of gods. In ancient Hindu, Greek, Roman, Norse, and other polytheistic religions, the ultimate explanation for anything is because this particular god is the one who handles that, and he or she made it so. Or because these particular gods were in contention, and this god won out over that other god. In Judaism, Christianity, Islam, or any monotheistic religion, the ultimate explanation for anything that happens is because the one true God made it so. In any of the above, if you take away God or gods, the conceptual foundation is gone, and the whole thing collapses. Nothing can be explained or justified if there are no divine beings to cause, require, or prohibit anything. A structural dependence on deities leads many religionists to wrongly assert that without God or gods, one need not be moral or cannot be moral. More perniciously, many will assert and kill for the idea that without their particular understanding of God or gods, one is necessarily and irredeemably immoral. If the claims of your preferred religion were proved to your satisfaction to be false, do you think your answer to the question, "Who am I?" would suddenly be, "I am a constantly self-serving liar, thief, rapist, and murderer, formerly only held in check by religion"? That is the proposition of those who say that God is necessary and solely responsible for morality. You should be mad at them for so gravely underestimating you. And you should see the obvious falsity of the argument that religion is the source of morality. Rather, religion codifies, and sometimes perverts, morality that naturally arises in people. Ironically and tragically, rather than being the unequivocal source of morality, religion has been the inspiration for people to commit heinous acts on a huge scale for thousands of years, probably for as long as religion has existed. Hello, Poetic Wine 99. There's a great line in the TV show Afterlife about the fact that one can have morality without religion. Oh yeah? Nice. Welcome indeed. Thank you for coming. Contrary to how this may sound, this is not a book about atheism, although it was written by a passionate atheist, my father. I'm reading from Eat the Strawberries by Bennett Baruch, and it is a tome on his... basically on his journey to and impression of his own worldview. And in this chapter, he's talking about what the book is and isn't. And because he is neither Buddhist nor of Eastern descent, he wants to clarify where he is speaking in religious terms, which is 0.01% of the time, and where he's not, which is the book. I like how you can tell he's holding himself back from it. And not very well, I might add. Again, I mean, even if I had been there to actively edit this book with him, there's nothing I could have done about this, you know? The broad strokes are too strong. It's just part of his belief. He's more extreme than I am, but no firmer than I am. I'm very firmly atheist. I just don't necessarily agree that religion is inherently evil. But I think that I'll admit that his arguments in this chapter make it difficult not to conclude that the world would be a better place without any religions. And I'm sorry if saying that is insulting. I'm not trying to be punitive. That does seem like a logical conclusion from what we've read here, I think. Religious thinkers typically hold that their faith is uniquely right and every other faith is wrong, even though faith literally means belief without proof, and their faith is merely one out of thousands actively practiced today, one out of tens of thousands throughout human history. I love using cultural appropriation when I get tired of people quoting Jesus said this or that. I mean, leave my poor cousin out of it. Even without religion, people will find something else to put their belief. That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's a really good point. At the end of the day, this does all come back to tribalism as the first and biggest problem that we face in modern society. And as my dad pointed out, like, we evolved into tribalism because it was necessary for our survival. But now it is causing our death. If you don't accept all of Leviticus, don't quote any of it. I agree. I actually just about 10 days ago now, I'm clean shaven right now because I did a short film where I was playing I don't think the script actually says what he is, but he's in like he's essentially a youth pastor or a youth minister, and I had a Bible in the film as a prop, and I was flipping through it, and I was just amazed. Like on every single double page, I was like, nobody believes that. Nobody believes that. Nobody believes that. Which book is this? This is the book people quote from. I'm not going to go into specific verses. One, because I cannot accurately remember and reproduce them. Two, because that's not what I want this stream to be. Youth Pastor Jonathan of the Cannibals, that's me. At the basis of every language, the basis terms are for us familiar position up to the tribe. I'm not sure I follow. The basis terms are for... Oh, you mean like language is inherently... The structure of language is inherently tribalism because you are communicating in a way other people cannot? Well, that's true, but... if I'm understanding you properly, I don't see that as evil. I just see that as another obstacle we have to overcome, because it's inevitable. Person, wife, children, where someone is related, then tribal, and then everyone else. It is neither even evil or good, it is. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we every language draws barriers between one thing, where one thing ends and another begins, because that is really deeply useful to human beings. I mean, the entire point of a noun is to draw boundaries around something. So, yeah, language does inherently lend itself to tribalism. That's an interesting point. Some go to the extreme, others are simpler, yeah. And then you've got, like, giving chairs gender, which... what a strange choice. I find languages with gendered nouns very interesting. Or then you have, like, a friend of mine teaches Japanese kanji, and he's, like, really extensively studied the history of kanji. And... so many, again, Japanese kanji are actually Chinese characters. So when we talk about the ancient Chinese civilization that produced Chinese characters, so many of them are pictograms of dicks. And so many other ones are inherently sexist. Did you know that the character for woman is in the character for jealousy? What the fuck? Also, the character for woman is in the character for daughter, but the character for man is not in the character for son, because son is just the default thing a child can be. It's fucked, man. Oh, it's not Chinese? Oh, that's complete news to me. Oh no, of course it's not Chinese. No, I'm sorry if I made it sound like Chinese is spoken or written in Japan. No, it's not. I just meant that the characters originated in ancient China and were borrowed into Japan at a much later time. But I know that even among Japanese kanji, like, there are many that aren't used in modern Chinese, or I think there may actually be a few, like the kanji for watashi, I've never seen that in Chinese. I trust that it was there at some point, but I don't see it anymore. We are learning! Yeah! Very semantic difference. The kanji is taking the sound of the character and spelling out the Japanese. Oh, you're talking about onyomi versus kunyomi, right? Every kanji has at least two readings. Um, yeah, sorta. Well, it's so interesting, right? There are so many different versions of this script because in Chinese you have Mandarin and Cantonese, and then beyond that you have traditional and simplified Chinese characters, and the traditional ones are the ones that have been used for most of Chinese history and were imported to Japan. The simplified ones are the ones that were revised for more modern, just efficiency. It's easier to read, it's faster to write. Um, and then on the Japanese side, you've got there are some kanji like trying to think of an example, but I can't right now. But there are many kanji that only have one reading, and it's the kunyomi reading, which is the one that is native to Japan. And they just, if I understand correctly, they already had that word. That word just arose in spoken language in Japan natively. And then they later attached a character to it. And then onyomi is when you sort of Japanify a Chinese character's pronunciation into Japanese. And sometimes you're like, I see I see where they were going with that, and other times you're like, what? Huh? Although now that I think about it, the kunyomi for horse is uma, but the Chinese for the same character is ma. And the interesting. That's probably not coincidence. But it is kunyomi, which means that it's native to spoken ancient Japanese. So I guess that implies that maybe it is coincidence, or maybe the cultures had earlier connection and exchange than we typically think about it. You are close. One sec, wife acro. Okay, Poetic Wine, you clearly have a lot of information about this, and it's really cool. I'm sorry if I've been mansplaining. I'm trying to I'm presenting the information as best as I know how to do. But thank you for correcting me where I'm getting things wrong, because it's really important to me to get all of this correct, because it's not my culture, and although it's culture, like both Chinese and Japanese culture are very, very interesting to me, I recognize that I will never have a native experience of it, and so I'm very willing to accept that I'm wrong about many of my beliefs about it, because a lot of them probably are wrong. But I also know that I know more than most people who don't live in those countries, or who weren't raised in those countries, or raised by immigrants from those countries. And so I try to spread awareness where I can, and sometimes I don't get it right. What you're saying isn't wrong, but it can be more right. Oh yeah, ads. Ad jail is almost over. Well, anyway, for the next 30 seconds, where the fuck were we? Uh, yes. Grabbing some oolong, nice. I will say, jasmine green tea, actually just jasmine flower. Jasmine flower is my favorite smell on this goddamn planet. And there is no contest. Yay, ads are over. Well, I'm really grateful to you, Poetic Wine. I don't think I've ever had somebody with 2 masters on culture in my chat before. That's awesome. Gardenia's pretty nice too. I'll have to check that one out. Yeah, I'm sure that it can be improved. So again, thank you. But I'm glad that I'm not wrong, because that would make me feel really terrible. But yeah, I'm really interested in that. So thank you for sharing. And again, welcome. I don't know if you heard any of that. Sorry, I'm assuming gender. My bad. You said wife. I'm being heteronormative. Anyway, where was I? As an aside, speaking of asides, this means that every single God-believing person who is horrified by atheism is themselves an atheist with respect to the thousands of gods that others believe in. 330 million gods in the case of Hinduism. We are all atheists. So-called atheists reject just one more god than believers do. If we limit the god count to 4,000, which is about the number of religions in the world today, that means that believers are only 25 thousandths of 1% less atheistic than atheists. Put the other way around, believers ignore, or really don't realize, that they are 99.975% atheist, as they insist that they uniquely comprehend the one true God out of thousands, and that their God is necessary for a properly lived life. The mathematical insignificance of their definition of God highlights that their sense of righteousness is based on nothing more than a parochial cultural artifact, and their exposure to the people and other cultures that comprise the human landscape is severely limited. Harsh words, Dad, but you're not wrong. Steep in the oolong. I'm sorry, I think you missed a lot of what I was saying, but the Spark Notes version is I'm very grateful for where you have made me more correct than I have been. One true god equals kitties. Just like the trio, Kitty God is split into millions of parts all over the world. I just saw 2 kitten gods yesterday. My friend adopted some recently. They're very cute. One is orange and light, like, he's basically creamsicle. And he's very stupid. And the other is pure, okay, not pure black. She has like black and very dark brown, sort of almost tiger stripes. They're both very beautiful. She's very smart. I have one on my foot. They are a kind but an unforgiving god. The evil side of the kitty god. Having a book or books, miracle stories, a lot of followers, institutions, traditions, the endorsement of a long history, and personal certainty are not unique to any religion, and in any case are not forms of proof. In fact, these are non-proving characteristics of every religion, and therefore cannot be used to raise one above tens of thousands of others. The next time you want to reject, condemn, or harm someone over a religious difference, consider this. You would not pay for a car, or even a coffee, if you only had a 1 chance in 55,000 of actually getting it. How much worse is it to do something as damaging as creating animosity or doing harm to a human life based on odds you wouldn't even take for buying a coffee? Fuck. Fuck. I don't remember. This is actually my first time reading the book. I read the first few chapters, which is what made me know that I wanted to do this. But yes, you may absolutely ask questions. I think it would be wrong to have this kind of stream without welcoming discourse, please. Kitties must be appeased. Oh, poster on your wall! Is that from Wizards? I don't think I have any posters that are from Wizards. This one is Lindsay Sterling. That is Vivi from... I don't remember which Final Fantasy. It's a black mage. That is Star Guardian Soraka. That is a Wani Kani postcard. This is... Fuck. it's hard to do this. I'm not mirrored. I'm like seeing what you're seeing, and it's difficult. This was actually made for me by all of my fans, all of my biggest fans on Discord and YouTube, congratulating me on 2 years since I started making video essays. Self-plug, I make video essays about video game soundtracks and try to make them more accessible for non-musicians. The Black Wizard is based on the image from the movie. Oh, well then yeah. Definitely. Whose book? Oh, this book? Eat the Strawberries. My dad wrote this. I'm not reading it just because my dad wrote it, though. I'm reading it because I think it's a genuinely very good book, and I've really enjoyed what I read of it. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to, like, previously, the last time I did a stream like this, I had the Amazon link posted and pinned. Do that again. Bum ba da 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 da. Bum bum bum. Is there a share button, or should I just copy the URL? I'll just copy the URL. Again. Yes, Baruch atah Adonai. You will not believe how wowed I was when I learned the... I never, like, went to synagogue or anything, but we celebrated Hanukkah when I was growing up. And so when I first learned the prayers for Hanukkah, I was like, what? Wait, really? If you don't know, Baruch means blessed. So yes, my ancestors were pretentious as fuck. And my rabbi jokes that my Arabic is better than my Hebrew. Well, I can't speak any of either, so good on ya. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, so like, many Jewish prayers in the Hebrew, well, translated to English, begin, "Blessed art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe." And you may have noticed that the first word of that is blessed. So my last name begins many Hebrew prayers, and it has never stopped being weird for me. Baruch atah Adonai. Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher kish. It's been a long time since I sang these, but they're like, you know, they're branded into me. At a genetic level, Jews all know this prayer. Pinned. I didn't actually say what that link is for, but context should make it clear, I hope. Buddhism contains many supernatural claims, and as in other religions, the older the text, the more supernaturalism is presented as fact. Like all other religions, many things believed within Buddhism will be seen as legend, myth, magical thinking, nonsense, or evil by those who do not share in those beliefs. Footnote. This of course says more about people than it does about religion. Even if there were a religion that was entirely correct, there would surely be many people who did not consider it so. And they would surely see various of its assertions as anything from religious nonsense to dangerous evil. I'm just Savra, so we are the heretics that don't really put much faith in Leviticus. I'll be honest with you, I don't think I've ever heard that term, so I don't know what it means. Just like every time I hear, "May the Force be with you," I respond, "and also with you." That's really funny. I was raised going to Unitarian Church for a little while, which basically just means all Old Testament faiths welcome. Um, I don't remember why my parents thought it was important for my sister and I to be raised that way, but as mentioned in the book, my dad actually was a lay minister at that church for some time, so obviously we were attending while he was um, preaching, although I never heard his sermons because I was always young enough to still be in Sunday school. I don't think I ever attended one of his services, which is a shame, but he has them written down in like old Microsoft Word documents. I've read some of them. Obviously, they were not very religious, but they weren't anti-religious because that would defeat the purpose of going to church. My dad finds a lot of value in the Bible. He just correctly observes that most of it is useless or worse. Maybe not most, that's not fair, but a large amount of it would be absurd in modern contexts. Sort of not meant. Oh, Arab Jews, got it. Yeah. Oh, fuck. That's kind of like. I imagine that could be very alienating, because so many people try to pit them against each other, as if there aren't Arab Jews. Wisdom is wisdom, independent of the source. Yeah, I fully agree. Here we are. One of the things that makes Buddhism more amenable to secular extraction than other religions is that most of its supernatural ideas are incidental rather than consequential. There are ample references to divine beings, demons, ogres, talking animals, magical objects and incantations, invisibility, levitation, and so on. However, if we look at Buddhism as if it were a novel, these all have much more to do with ambiance than plot, character development, or thesis. If we were writing a novel, we might use such supernatural constructs for their concise symbolism or their atmospheric contribution, without expecting any reader to believe them to be real or missing our meaning because they are fictions. To be clear, some Buddhists may consider some or all of these things real and not fictions. This is no different than Jews who think Moses turned his staff into a snake, or Christians who think Jesus turned water into wine. Secularly, we see these things as only affecting the storytelling and not the story's teaching. In this book, I have omitted nearly all of Buddhism's supernatural elements, rendering it more secular than it renders itself. Although Buddhism incidentally refers to divine beings, even in its most traditional and religious form, it does not have a creator god, a heaven or hell god, or a king of the gods. Buddhism contains a collection of stories in which the main protagonist is the individual human navigating life, not god or gods creating and acting upon the world, desiring this and condemning that. Buddhist deities are on the same journey toward enlightenment as humans, just further along. In a few sects... Oh, ad starts in 2 minutes. Damn it! Well, I'm just gonna plow through. It'll be on the VOD, I assume. Where was I? Lost my place. In a few sects, a Buddhist might pray to one of the historical bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas? A person well along the path to becoming a Buddha. This is not a common and representative feature of Buddhism. Buddha was distinctly not interested in supernatural beings or interventions by them. The Dalai Lama's daily morning prayer reflects the emphasis on human agency that characterizes Buddha's teaching. May I guard for those who need protection. May I be a guard for those who need protection. A guide for those on the path. A boat, a raft, a bridge, for those who wish to cross the flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick, a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles, and for the boundless multitudes of living beings. May I bring sustenance and awakening, enduring like the earth and sky, until all beings are freed from sorrow and all are awakened. Notice how this is all about what I aspire to do, my responsibilities to intervene. There's no request or expectation here for divine intervention or even inspiration, guidance, or support. Buddhism's focus on and confidence in human responsibility and capability is one of its most distinguishing characteristics among the world's religions. In the Buddhist view, you are not some helpless, hapless, sin-ridden, worthless, lowly mortal whose only hope is God's grace. You are both responsible for and able to carry out your responsibilities, and you don't need divine intervention, guidance, or inspiration to do it. There are two reasons that Buddhist teachings do not collapse when its supernatural aspects are removed. Ad time. No, I'm just going to keep going. There are two reasons that Buddhist teachings do not collapse when its supernatural aspects are removed. Divine beings are not the primary characters and first cause in Buddhism. They are subject to the same universal laws as the rest of us, just functioning at a more advanced level. We ourselves are fully able to do all that should be done, and we are responsible to do it. And the universal supernatural laws are laws, not personalities, a critical difference we will explore just below. The two most significant premises of Buddhism, in my view, are illusion and the path to eliminating it, and karma as a natural force that affects justice over multiple reincarnations. Footnote: as used in this book, illusion is a combination of perceptual illusion and mental delusion. In choosing between these two terms, I have chosen illusion for its connotation of being passive, sometimes quite subtle, and often going unnoticed. By contrast, delusion connotes either an extreme break from reality or a blameworthy distortion. By illusion, we only mean mistaken thoughts, not wildly or willfully wrongful ones. In using the word illusion, I hope to convey innocently not knowing that we are mistaken in our seemingly factual observations, conclusions, and beliefs. The immense role of illusions hidden in plain sight shows up repeatedly throughout this book. The term Maya is often translated as illusion, but Maya connotes the idea that since all mundane things are subject to change, they are illusory and actually non-existent. This book does not embrace that idea. Illusion versus clarity is a feature of the mind, not of the supernatural. So this is inherently secular, not otherworldly. Buddhism has a lot of smart things to say about the pervasiveness and impact of illusions hidden in plain sight, and that topic is featured prominently in this book. Karma and reincarnation— Welcome back! Karma and reincarnation are obviously supernatural premises, but we will see that they function like a natural force, not like a god. As glibly used in the West, you might think karma means a kind of near-term, vengeful cosmic retribution for doing something bad, perhaps even something petty. Example, Bob takes Carol's parking spot, a tree branch falls and damages Bob's car, and Carol yells, "Karma!" with gleeful satisfaction. That does not reflect an authentic understanding of karma, and doesn't speak well of Carol. In more authentic understanding, karma is entirely impersonal and operates on a time scale and with the seriousness of whole lifetimes. You might think of reincarnation as the post-death transmigration of the soul into a new life as an animal or person, reflecting a summary assessment of the moral merit of the life one has just completed. That's the right idea, but insufficiently detailed. One's spiritual essence survives reincarnation, but not memory or sense of self. And one is born not only as a member of a particular species, but also into circumstances at the intersection of what one deserves and what one needs to experience in order to continue in their spiritual development. In particular, when reincarnated as a human being, one is born into a particular social class, group, and family. Putting the two ideas together, one's karma determines the details of their next reincarnation, and reincarnation is the enforcement of karma. How is this like a natural force and not like a god? Karma does not have a personality with a special relation to a chosen people, or an interest in a particular set of beliefs, or a desire to be worshipped and obeyed, or pleasure or displeasure regarding our behavior, or rewards or punishments to bestow. Karma is not personified in any way. It's a force of nature, like gravity. If you walk on solid ground, gravity does what it does, and if you jump off a cliff, gravity does what it does. With identical absence of personhood or mind, karma provides the reincarnation that is the predictable consequence of your actions. Praying to karma would be just as ridiculous as praying to gravity. It just does what it does, and since it's predictable, it's on you to act accordingly. Better yet, from a secular perspective, if one decides to live in favor of justice, kindness, and compassion, the ethics associated with karma are valid just on the basis of that decision. Enforcement comes from conscience, rather than reincarnation. Why should we live in favor of justice, kindness, and compassion if there isn't someone or something to make us, like God or karma? Because, as scientists continue to document, as the most socially interdependent species on the planet, it is both in our genetics and in our pragmatic interest to do so. The comparative track record of atheists, humanists, and secularists, as compared to religionists, bears this out. But then, how to explain evil if it is so natural and valuable for us to do good? Broadly speaking, there are two conditions that move us toward evil and away from compassion. One is when we are psychologically compromised, threatened, or damaged, which is pretty darn often. And the other is when we consider someone not to be a member of our own tribe, which is pretty darn often. Calm under duress. Calm under duress is an essential Buddhist idea. Simply commanding, be zen about it, doesn't dissolve your distress. Wishing for calm under duress really hard is closer to anxiety than calm. Escalating concern or despair about not being calm certainly does not make it pop up out of nowhere. Being self-possessed, confident, and comfortable when under duress is an outcome we can achieve more fully and more often, as we learn to do the following increasingly well. Be mindful of what is actually happening. Recall that the information we have is always incomplete and approximate at best. What is doesn't owe us anything. Change is constant, except perhaps when we want it to be. Let's go over this in a bit more detail. Be mindful of what is actually happening. Not what you mistake for what is happening. Not what you think about what is happening. Not what you feel about what is happening. Not what you wish were happening. Not being so inside yourself that you miss what is happening outside of yourself. Not being so outside of yourself that you miss what is happening inside yourself. Not what has scared you when this or something similar has happened in the past. Not a story about or commentary on or analysis of what is happening now. Just what is. Now. The information we have is always incomplete and approximate at best. Do your best to understand and predict, but don't be so surprised, angry, embarrassed, or unyielding when it turns out you were wrong, or someone else was. People being mistaken happens all the time. It's a commonplace, not an outrageous except. I think that's supposed to be it's commonplace, not an outrageous exception. Expect it, embrace it, plan on it happening, and move forward. What is doesn't owe us anything. Be as disappointed, frustrated, sad, or angry as you are when things are not as you would like. But don't be astonished and outraged. You don't have a contract with the universe for things to go a certain way. Change is constant. Recall that unforeseen negatives may occur, instead of being shocked when they do. Recall that unforeseen positives may follow, instead of despairing that some unwanted condition will go on forever. It's a lot to digest. What exactly does it mean? How does it apply to my situation X? How do we achieve this equanimity, and what can it do for us? What about times when some person, group, organization, company, or government action is very wrong, and objection is a far better response than acceptance? What is currently so must be accepted as the reality of a given starting point. but it does not need to be accepted as an inescapable endpoint. Part of what is so at any point in time is the array of things that are possible in subsequent points of time. Sometimes we have to object to what is so in this moment to improve what it will be in some future moment. Quote, "Everything will be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end." John Lennon. Accepting what is so really means acknowledging it without illusion, not approving of it or resigning oneself to it. How can we manage despair when, despite our efforts, it overtakes us? How will things work out if I'm being all zen and the other guy's being a jerk? The goal is not to memorize a zillion zen stories and whip out the right one at a critical moment. The goal is to spend enough time reflecting on life in a zen-ish way that when adversity arises, it will most likely be met with calm, confident, zen-ish response. I want to take a tangent there. At a personal level, I have found that in moments where I feel that I have behaved in a wise manner, it has never been because I thought really hard and remembered a bunch of stuff and came up with an awesome plan. It's because in the moment where I needed it, information and thoughts that I had already had previously came to mind, unbidden, and reminded me how I should act in that moment. And I find that that happens more often if you are to, think philosophically on your own time when things aren't bad, so that you have a chance of those thoughts coming to you when you actually do need them. And a really good... Yeah, we are the culmination of what we've learned. Not much more than that. What I have found can help encourage those thoughts to come back to us in the moments we need them is a trip on mushrooms. Karma and reincarnation. I cannot reconcile my personal life experience, the lives I know, or the arcs of biological or human history with the notion of karmic justice. It sounds nice, but it doesn't seem to be happening. The same me who finds the biblical story of Adam and Eve unfactual likewise dispenses with Buddhism's idea of reincarnation. Footnote. Reincarnation is also a tenet of Hinduism, Jainism, and Sikhism, and in a different form, an extinct Christian sect and some tiny existing groups within Judaism. It is just one of many ways people have invented to deny that we die. We really, actually cease to exist. The concept of reincarnation also solves another problem. Religions that include the concept of karma tell us that it is an inescapable moral force for justice, just as the Abrahamic religions tell us that God ultimately controls everything and loves justice. Yet all around us we see the suffering of good people and rewards going to bad people. Karmically driven reincarnations, or eternities in Abrahamic heaven or hell, provide religions with the escape clause they need to bridge the gap between their claims of cosmic justice and the unjust life we frequently observe with our own eyes. If we decide to live in favor of justice, kindness, and compassion because that is the person we want to be, we don't need the threat of karmic enforcement or of an eternity in hell, or the bribe of karmic promotion or an eternity of Jesus Christ, I can't talk. We don't need the threat of karmic enforcement or an eternity in hell, or the bribe of karmic promotion or of eternity in heaven. We just need our own conscience and actions. As a personal choice, this is true morality. Mere obedience to power or avoidance of punishment or acceptance of bribes are not moral actions. I would actually argue that that is inherently animal behavior. Quote, God created atheists to teach us the most important lesson of them all, the lesson of true compassion. You see, when an atheist performs an act of charity, visits someone who is sick, helps someone who is in need, and cares for the world, he's not doing so because of some religious teaching. His acts are based on an inner sense of morality. And look at the kindness he can bestow upon others simply because he feels it to be right. This means that when someone reaches out to you for help, you should never say, "I pray that God will help you." Instead, for the moment, you should become an atheist. Imagine that there is no God who can help, and say, "I will help you." Martin Buber. Even if reincarnation were real, giving you lots of time to do better, what benefit would there be in postponing your own growth so your good acts toward others instead of doing as much as... What benefit would there be in postponing your own growth or your good acts toward others instead of doing as much of it as possible, as soon as possible, and as often as possible? If there is anything you hope to accomplish, any way in which you hope to become a better you, anything you want to do for anyone else, now is an excellent time to do it. Stop pretending that you have an infinitely long time to get around to it. People who are important to you will die before you are ready. You will too. Quote, "The trouble is, you think you have time." Buddha. I'll add that this is actually a very Jewish perspective that my dad is giving here. What I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Poetic, if you're still here, what I think is one of the biggest differences between Judaism and Christianity... Hey, good to see you. What I think is one of the biggest differences between Judaism and Christianity is... not all Christianity. Obviously, there are many, 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 many sects, and they all have their own beliefs. But in general, Christianity is very concerned about heaven and hell. And Judaism is much more concerned about, like, yeah, when we're dead, we'll be dead. But we're not. So let's do shit. Let's make the rest of our lives good. Because that's what's here now. There's no hell in Judaism, right? But there is an afterlife. And it's not a like, the goal of Judaism is not to prepare for the afterlife. It's not to use this life as a test or a gauntlet for the afterlife. It's to be a person with your fellow person. And I just personally think that's nicer. A mensch! You want to be a mensch. Quote, "There is one simple thing wrong with you. You think you have plenty of time. If you don't think your life is going to last forever, what are you waiting for?" Carlos Castaneda. Interesting. Growing up, it was all about how we are here to suffer, essentially. Yeah, I don't love Catholicism. The basis of non-Hasidic belief. Okay. Just like there's a lot I don't know about Eastern culture, there's a lot I actually don't know about Judaism, despite being half Jewish. I know the prayers of Hanukkah. And I know a decent amount about Jewish culture because the ultra-Orthodox are downright scary. No one in my family is Orthodox, I don't think. But several living members of my family do go to synagogue on a regular basis, and especially on the East Coast, Judaism is still a very big deal for my family. But because I live in California, and because my nuclear family is totally non-religious, there's a lot that I missed out on in terms of in terms of Jewish education. My father's Jewish, which means I'm not Jewish, I know. I don't talk to... I know Poetic see this right now, but I'll read it anyway. I don't talk to part of my family European Orthodox. Rather hang with it. Jeez. That's brutal. I will come back to this when the ads are over. Paradoxically, this emphasis on doing it now, antithetical to the idea of reincarnating through as many lifetimes as you need until you get it right, is also very Buddhist. In the mountain simile, a king is approached by a wandering teacher with a story about an alleged catastrophe. As it is a parable, we will forgive that it is a ridiculous catastrophe. The visitor says, "There I saw a great mountain, as high as the clouds, coming this way, crushing all living beings in its path. Do whatever you think should be done." The good and wise king says that since the end is near and cannot be avoided, he must be steadfast about engaging in right conduct and meritorious deeds in whatever little time remains to him. The teacher then admits that a mountain is not coming to crush all living things, but warns that old age and death are. As infirmity and death constantly approach, now is always the time to be steadfast about engaging in right conduct and meritorious deeds. Quote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, and say, and think." Marcus Aurelius. Free at last! Bezos has set me free. For now. Yes, my father's Jewish. My mother is not. Which I know some communities believe means that I am not Jewish, but my digestive problems suggest otherwise to me. I live pretty distantly from my Jewish family, physically, but when we do get together, we have a good time. I honestly couldn't tell you if we're Hasidic or Ashkenazi, because I'm pretty sure I have lineage from both, but we're not Orthodox. I found your condemnation of Orthodox Judaism quite searing, and since I don't know anything about Orthodox Judaism except that they wear a lot of black, I can't really confirm or deny. Biblically, you aren't huh? Oh, biblically you aren't Jewish, genetically you are. Yeah, I think that's true. I don't consider myself spiritually or religiously Jewish, or I don't think it's even fair to say that I'm culturally Jewish. I know a lot about Jewish culture, but not as much as a practicing Jew ever would. Yeah, for me it's mostly about lineage, and I appreciate and accept my heritage, but I don't feel that I am like a living continuation of it. Oh, you're not practicing either. You said you had a rabbi, so I assumed you were. Quote, "The time is always right to do what is right." Martin Luther King Jr. Once we put aside the mystical facts of Buddhism, facts as in quotes, such as karma, reincarnation, and rampaging mountains, what remains presents us with many truths, and it does so better than I can do on my own. I am gratefully using that in my life and in this book. I invite you to do likewise. Death meditation. This dramatic name for a meditation topic refers not to death per se, but to the fact that life is temporary. Am I living a life I will be glad of when death arrives and I am done? Am I postponing pleasures or good deeds until conditions are right? Am I holding myself sufficiently accountable for living up to the values I claim to hold? Am I punishing myself too harshly and with insufficient compassion for imperfections that are inherent in being human? Am I making too many excuses or compromises in my life? Which ones? Am I making too few compromises? Am I powerfully conveying the love I feel to the people I love powerfully? If death were to take a person in the next few minutes, what will I wish I had done sooner or more often? Am I making the mistake of thinking I have time? The basis of the ninth orthodoxy is what you do what is right, not because someone tells you to, but because it is needed to be done. Yeah, I like that. I have a rabbi because he is a wise man that has good advice without forcing the faith on. Ah, I see. Yeah, my sister actually, I don't know if she still does, but she went to a church for a long period of time and made some really good friends and became quite close with her pastor, without ever feeling like she was other or incomplete because she was not personally, literally faithful. And I'm really grateful for religious communities like that, and like for people like your rabbi, because nonth is the moral belief, as opposed to the scripture belief. I see. I've never heard that. But yeah, I actually, tribalism is a double-edged sword, right? Because to completely do away with tribalism is to completely do away with other people. And the worst thing about atheism and agnosticism is that there's no inherent community to it. Organized religion has the problems that it has, and they are massive, and they do outnumber the goods, in my opinion. But we throw out so much baby with that bathwater when we get rid of church communities. Church communities are such beautiful things when they are led responsibly. And they can absolutely change communities and save people's lives. Biggest thing I miss about being involved in church is the community. Yeah. Tribal can be based on a lot of different bases. Yeah. Tribalism in general, as my dad says in the book, it's not evil, it just presents problems. And it's also human and genetic, and we are going to continue doing it. So we have to figure out how we're going to continue doing it. Tribal creates a language issue, us versus them. Yeah, inherently. And actually, that actually is a biological thing too. I remember reading that oxytocin, which is commonly known as the bonding chemical, that's what's exposed when you play with a puppy, when a mother breastfeeds, or when a child is breastfeeding. Like, that is the tenderness, the connection, the family love chemical. And it has also been proven to increase your disdain for people who are not in your group. It is a polarizing chemical, not a goodness chemical. It actually, in a sense, is a tribalism chemical. And people don't talk about that enough. There is a chemical in our bodies making us tribal, and we have to respect that. It creates a sense of belonging. That's a great way of putting it, yeah. It's your unit, it's your people, it's your home. And that's a beautiful thing to have, and it shouldn't be disparaged. But it can also lead us to some really bad behavior and conclusions if we don't think about it in a critical way. We're literally built for it. We're literally built for tribalism. It's not a bad thing. There are so many beautiful things about tribalism. It's just that you gotta keep it in check, bud. What is my hair doing? Think of yourself as dead. Now take what is left of your life and live it properly. Marcus Aurelius. We have two lives. The second one begins when we realize we only have one. Confucius. You don't get to choose how you're going to die or when. You can only decide how you're going to live now. Joan Baez. Decide now. Embody your decision now, and more as the days and weeks go by. It's never too late to be who you want to be. It's only too late to start sooner. Dukkha versus suffering. Oh, biologically, we are not designed for much of modern view of Jesuit Christian Judeo-Christian beliefs. Yeah. And frankly, we're not biologically designed for much of the secular modern view of humanity. I mean, the consequences of being an intelligent, sentient, global species is that we have realized, well, some of us, many of us have realized that what we are built to do is not what we should do at a community level. And there are some of us that know that. There are some of us that don't know that. There are some of us that know it but don't know how to apply it. There are some of us that know it but refuse to acknowledge it. I mean, we're all over the place. But at the end of the day, there's always going to be friction between what our chemicals are telling us to do and what will create the most happiness and the least suffering. Jesuits where? Georgetown. I've never been to Georgetown. Dukkha versus suffering. Buddhism holds that the purpose of life is enlightenment. That enlightenment is the complete loss of all illusion, allowing perfectly accurate awareness of everything in the universe all at once. We are told that having perfect knowledge, free from all illusion, there will be no desire for anything to be any different than it is. Lacking all illusion and misdirected desire, one will no longer have any suffering, and thus will have nothing left to learn or develop. Thus freed of all impediments, one will fully re-merge with the ultimate cosmic oneness of reality, from which the illusion of one's separate existence sprang, and the need to reincarnate will be extinguished. You may have heard that Buddha said, life is suffering, and that all suffering comes from illusion, or from desire, depending on which passage is being referenced. Due to the limitations of language, again, and of human brains, one frequently finds complex and subtle topics diminished into misleading simplifications. Very big things are reduced to very tiny sound bites, and sound bites are deceptive. It's impossible to avoid problems with sound bites when one wants a sentence or two to represent what can only be done justice in a number of paragraphs, pages, or books. Tell me about it when I write my video essays. Buddha said that life is dukkha. The Pali word dukkha is most often translated into English as suffering. However, scholars tell us that a more faithful translation would indicate the entire range from embarrassingly petty dissatisfactions to the intense anguish we associate with the English word suffering. Buddhists are the Asian versions of Socratics? Yeah! Truly! Ask why when you run out of wise... Ask why, when you run out of wise, you are either really bored and know too much, or you died of old age and it doesn't matter anymore. Asking why is an excellent pastime. Parents of 2-year-olds may disagree, but it's always valuable. The mere fact that nothing lasts forever, most especially that we don't last forever, is considered an inherent and inescapable dissatisfaction of the first degree, hence dukkha. Being disappointed that the ice cream store is out of your favorite flavor is not suffering, but it is a type of dukkha. So when Buddha said life is suffering, well, that's not what he said. What he said was life is unsatisfying in numerous small and large ways. That's quite different. You can see that there is no one-word translation of dukkha into English. This is problematic for an English-speaking audience because the topic of dukkha is central to Buddhism. To sum up all he had to offer, Buddha said, life is dukkha, and I teach about dukkha and the cessation of dukkha. Thus, neither Buddha nor Buddhism says that life is nothing but suffering, nor are we truly being told that all suffering is an illusion, or results from illusion, or that all desire is inherently bad. What is said, as we shall see throughout the book, is... I'm gonna pause because I want to read what you said before we have an ad break in 20 seconds. Can you see why my professors might have dreaded my sardonic nature? You must have been a double-edged sword. Dukkha can also be seen as the anguish of need. I like that. That's poetic. Oh, you snoozed the ad! I forgot that's an option. Thank you. Gen X, way to go! I've got a lot of respect for Gen X. And for Gen Z, actually. It's good shit. I'm really proud of recent generations. Right, that's the thing. It's a... your father has a very good understanding without getting deep into the dogma. I'm really happy you think so. I'll tell him you said so, because that was 100% his intention with this book. I think I probably read this bit before you were able to join stream, but he was saying, like, he recognizes that he is not Buddhist. The reason he's writing about Buddhism isn't because he finds... It's not that he found Buddhism and then wrote a book about it. It's that he wrote a book about him and realized that there was overlap with Buddhism and respects that. So it's actually the opposite of cultural appropriation. It's respect that although he came to these conclusions on his own, there is convergent thinking here. And he has greatly benefited from the wisdom of ancients. I didn't know you taught... Oh, you taught uni for a few years. You made students cry! No! Because you were mean or because you were honest? What is said, as we shall see through this book, is honest equals mean. Some people think so. Although, of course, you can be honest meanly. Is that what you were doing? Much, not all, of human suffering derives from illusions that we genuinely mistake for facts. Much of human suffering derives from wanting things with a belief that they will satisfy us in ways they never do and actually can't. Dissatisfaction up to and including intense suffering is an inescapable aspect of, but not all of, being alive. We can minimize dissatisfaction and suffering by becoming much wiser about our illusions and desires. Yeah, there's a difference between... I mean, it's the difference between constructive feedback and harsh feedback, right? My favorite professors would always tell me when I was wrong, but make me feel respected in the process and encouraged. The professors I have completely forgotten are the ones who didn't tell me I was wrong. The professors I'm glad I'll never see again are the ones who enjoyed telling me I was wrong. You can enjoy telling somebody's wrong and like, oh, cool, I get to talk about this now. I'm that guy. I do that shit all the time. I'm like, yes, okay, cool. I have another opportunity to talk about this thing that's interesting to me, and I want to help somebody understand it better. That's the premise of my YouTube channel. But if you're just like, this is gonna hurt you. Hate those professors. Never mean to be mean. I would do anything to help a student earn a passing grade. 3 a.m. study session. Wow! What I didn't accept was excuses or laziness. Nice. It sounds like you were an excellent professor. I'm sorry things didn't work out for you. Jonathan made me cry when he talked about tonics. I strongly doubt that. I'm sure I've made you cry in other contexts, but, not out of meanness, just out of a shared masochism for sad art. Picked the wrong field. If you were in the presence of a teacher you very much respected, and they said that life is anguish, you would not leap to, life is nothing but anguish, and any time I feel any pleasure or contentment or a sense of accomplishment, I must have been totally deluded. You would go beyond their mere words in an attempt to understand their frame of reference and the point they hoped to make in that context. You would leave room for poetic license on one hand or narrow scope of application on the other. You would allow for the possibility that the speaker was being sarcastic or dealing with bad news that day or even having a long-coming breakdown. You would not just record the most naive meaning of their words without examination and then spit them out later without regard for all these considerations. Language has limitations. Conversations happen in a context. One must bring one's brain to bear on human communication and not just transcribe words without thinking about the intended message. Especially for what we might call big topics, which includes many Buddhist teachings. We must engage, not just record and replay. Interdisciplinary, I am a generalist. In the USA, all colleges are specialists. So I was never going to get tenure. That is brutal, but true. Oh, is he out of here? Is it ad time? Yeah, there we go. I see that now. Expression is necessarily more limited than comprehension. Expression is not the actual thing itself, but a token used to represent the thing itself. Comprehension is an interpretation of and response to that representation. Comprehension brings expression back to life, re-expands it, hopefully to its original intent, and perhaps renders it in a new way, applies it in a new setting, or evolves it. Statements such as, Buddha said that life is suffering, or desire or illusion is the cause of all suffering, depending on which passage you read, are the replay of out-of-context recordings, not products of good comprehension. It is clear that Buddha understands that dukkha arises from things other than illusion and desire. For example, in the second arrow parable, he takes for granted that being shot with an arrow is a direct cause of suffering and not an illusion. It is likewise clear to him that desiring not to be shot with an arrow is a perfectly legitimate desire. Life shoots us with many... I'm gonna actually pause before this paragraph because there's only 7 seconds left. I should take a drink of water. I'm getting a little sore. Hello! And welcome back to me drinking water. The subathon. Not really. Where were we? A desire not to be shot with an arrow is not a delusion. Got it. BE, Civil Engineering, BS, History, BS, Psychology, BS... How many degrees can a person have? Holy moly, you are without question... You cheated. You are without question, okay, maybe with question, but you are, to my knowledge, by far the most educated person I've ever, like, met in an online context. Very cool to have you here. Even if you cheated. Here we are. Life shoots us with many metaphorical arrows. We get physically hurt, and we get emotionally hurt. At the high end, we may be in a devastating accident or subject to an act of personal violence or of war, or have a debilitating disease. We have romantic heartbreaks, and some of the people we love will die before we do. Loved ones may suffer their own great losses, and we feel for them. Sometimes what they suffer is indirectly traumatic for us as well. In addition to indirect trauma, sometimes a loved one's loss takes from us in practical ways as well, as we provide for them and provide them with the care that they need. Thank you for paying off my bills. The army paid for them. I'm responsible for. Good job. Well worth the deficit. What is that emoji? Is that just a white circle? What is that? I can't see that properly, I don't think. Anyway. Some particular set of small and gigantic pains such as these are the first arrows of suffering in each human life. We each have our own set. No one escapes this. In itself, this is not an illusion, and there is nothing wrong with desiring to avoid these pains as much as possible and taking protective measures. The army has to benefit someone. We cannot read Buddha or any religious or secular leader as if every single thing they say is unambiguously clear. Neither should we expect every utterance to be literally true, utterly complete, and universally acceptable. Neither does the latest thing or our favorite thing replace every other thing they have ever said. Very young children, cultists, and religious fundamentalists think that way. Past early childhood, this reflects cognitive limitation, willful stupidity, or just plain ill will. Naive literalism is misguided at best, dangerous at all times, and often has inhumane or even lethal consequences. It benefits a lot of people. Sadly, it's the Veteran Affairs that doesn't give the support. Interesting! I didn't know that. I know that Veteran Affairs is fucked, but I didn't realize that that was, like, the core of the problem. Although I do know that, for lack of a better word, at least that's coming to mind, brotherhood in the army and in all of the military, but I think especially in the army, is really, really high on the list of priorities. Like, it's tough love, but it is deep love. I didn't know you were an army kid. I don't actually know what that means, because children are not allowed in the military. Army isn't perfect, yet most of the complaints are about 80% of the problems. What is the... Oh, wow. Most of the complaints are just people not realizing what's already being offered to them? Shit. Yikes. That sounds like humanity. Interesting. It's like karma in that way. Here we are. Buddhism does not hold that all desire and attachment and striving are bad. Kismet, that's what it is. You're right. Of course. The Dalai Lama has pointed out that without desiring and attaching to the goal of enlightenment and its striving toward it, no one would ever progress in that very laudable direction. He has said that it is foolish to think that Buddhism advises against attachment and striving. Buddhism only argues against misdirected attachment and striving. Buddha himself clearly endorses healthy desires. Here's an especially clear example. Quote, "Set your heart on doing good. Do it over and over again, and you will be filled with joy." Buddha. Your dad was army, but kids are referred to as army. Oh, got it. In the above quote, Buddha encourages our desire to do good by reminding us that it is synergistic with our desire to experience joy. The idea that Buddhism entirely rejects desire as nothing more than an inescapable source of suffering comes from a naive reading of too small a sampling of Buddhist writing. Chief among Buddha's own personal desires was to help all sentient beings reduce and ultimately escape suffering. Well-directed desire, attachment, and striving, and the resulting pleasure and accomplishments, are immensely positive. A life lacking these things is not. Buddha knew this. We should not forget it when we attempt to represent his teachings. As the Dalai Lama explicitly advocates and personally demonstrates, people should desire and take steps to attain their own happiness, joined with the happiness of others. Quote, "Experiencing joy changes our outlook on the world. Joy is power. Cultivate it." His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. As his own behavior shows, children can be a special source and recipient of great joy, and should be treated with effusively loving attention. Our response to first arrows should be as accepting as possible. These things happen to people all the time. There is nothing inherently personal or unique about it, even if it feels that way. I should reasonably protect against first arrows, but I know that they are going to happen anyway. There are many ways to unintentionally amplify and extend suffering, and frankly, even to identify it, even to enshrine it. That is the second arrow, and it takes many forms. How could this happen to me? Or, of course this happened to me. When will I ever get over this? Or, I will never get over this. I can't live with this. Or, I will be living with this forever. This pain is my identity. I don't know who I am without it. I don't know how I exist without it. These are all natural, spontaneously arising feelings. They have a basis in our emotional response, so let them come. They have no basis in objective reality, so let them go. Suffering, including unjust suffering, comes to us all. Suffering about suffering is a self-inflicted second arrow. Suffering about suffering is optional. Opt out. Even when our physical and emotional injuries are profound, the additional extra second arrow suffering about the injustice, relentlessness, bad fate, or other commentary about first arrow suffering tends to be where a great deal of our pain resides. Some first arrows are extraordinary. I will not minimize them. But all second arrows are self-inflicted injuries that make things worse. One of the primary objectives of the Buddhism and this book is to help you learn to lessen the intensity and number of your second arrows. Mastering this is hard, but beginning is simple. In the parable of the 84th problem, a man comes to Buddha seeking help with a set of personal concerns. After he details several of them and Buddha repeatedly says he cannot help, the frustrated man asks, "What good is your teaching if you cannot help me?" Buddha replies, "Everyone always has 83 problems, and there's nothing we can do about it. If you manage to solve one problem, it's immediately replaced by another, so you always have 83. And some problems can't be solved. For example, you are going to die, and that's a problem you will not escape. There's nothing you, nor I, nor anyone else can do about it. There is no life without problems. Yet solving your 84th problem will resolve everything." The confused man eagerly asked, "What is my 84th problem?" Buddha replies, Your 84th problem is your desire not to have any problems. That is the root of your misery. Expecting not to have problems or to be immune from any particular problem is a totally voluntary, very bad expectation. I recommend that you not volunteer for it. Footnote: 84 is a mystically fortuitous number in Hinduism and Buddhism. Desire and attachment. When we desire something we do not have, we are dissatisfied. That is a type of dukkha. When we obtain what we desire, this is usually followed by missing it when we don't have it with us, or by desiring more of it, or by fear of losing it, or by moving on to desiring something else. Religions really like having mystic numbers? Numbers are cool, dude! I one time met this guy who was telling me that, like, there's this magic number for him, 22, and it follows him around everywhere. Like, just off the top of my head, and he told me, like, 5 examples of where he saw the number 22, and in most of those top-of-the-head examples, it was a number like 22, and I'm like... If you look for things, you will find them. So many mystical Western numbers are Western constructs? Interesting. You know what else is funny? I'll take this tangent now because it looks like another ad break is coming up soon. But I remember seeing Adam Neely's video about the tritone, and, you know, so many people, including experts, for decades have talked about how the tritone was the devil interval, and it was banned by the Christian church because it was evil. And that is not true! There is no record of that anywhere! Which means that, beautifully, ironically, the tritone has never been more taboo than it is right now. And that's fucking funny. Anyway. I overestimated how long that tangent would take, so now the ad break still hasn't started. Oops. Tritone was actually banned because it was considered too holy, not evil. I haven't seen evidence of that. If you actually have, like, a link for that, I'm really curious to see that, because really my only education on this was from Adam Neely's video essay, and while I do, like, trust Adam Neely a lot, I don't expect any YouTube video to be exhaustive. Anyway. I didn't know that 13 used to be, realistic either. Actually, I'm curious, given your masters, do you... not my specialty area, I just listened to it. Yeah, we're music people here. Do you know why 4 is an unlucky number in China? And I think it is in Japan as well, right? I remember growing up, I grew up in, sounds like the word death. Okay, that's what I was told as a kid, but I wanted to double check. And then, similar with 7 in Japanese, right? Because shichi is one of the readings as opposed to nana, I think. But that's strange to me because shichi doesn't sound like death, does it? Like, to die is shinu, so how is shichi related? It just starts the same, but Japanese only has like 40 syllables in it. Isn't there a second reading for 4 in Japanese as well? I know 7 is both nana and shichi. 4 is mostly yon, but they say shi too, right? Yeah. I don't know. Etymology's confusing. But I grew up in, like, although I've never studied Eastern cultures or language, I grew up in a town with a lot of Chinese immigrant families, so I learned a lot of Mandarin and Chinese culture as a child. And although I never studied it, like, I have a lot of formative memories of Chinese culture, and a lot of that has stuck with me. Well, out of my ballywick. It's always I respect the respect of um, the edges and fringes of your expertise. I just got a text from my landlord. Let me check my schedule. Something. The water in my sink won't drain, and somebody's gonna fix it tomorrow. Need to check on wife. Isn't it ads right now anyway? I do need a sink. Here we are. Actually, how much more of this chapter is there? Because I've been going 2 hours now. Yeah, we're not gonna finish this chapter. Holy shit, we're not gonna finish this chapter. Jesus Christ, we're not gonna finish this chapter. Is the rest of the book this chapter? Okay, there we go. Oh, there's only 64 pages to go. We can do that. So many strawberries to eat. Here, let me see. This is how much of this chapter we've read versus how much we haven't read. It's hard to see the... It's definitely hard to see with any sort of fidelity, but we're less than halfway through this chapter. That's child's play. We'll do... I don't know. A few more sections. Desire and attachment. When we desire something that we do not have, we are dissatisfied. That is a type of dukkha. When we obtain that desire, this is usually followed by missing it when we don't have it with us, or by desiring more of it, or by fear of losing it, or by moving on to desiring something else. In all of these cases, we will still have dukkha, so allegedly fulfilling our desire has been pointless. Is my voice doing okay? Yeah. Does it sound like it's not? Because I should pay attention to that. Ironically then, whether frustrated or fulfilled, desire very often just leads to more dukkha. This is where we get the mistaken idea that Buddhism considers all desire to be bad. Just checking, thank you. Buddhism does tell us that desire is almost certain to lead to dukkha, in the manner just stated. But it also tells us we should desire to improve ourselves, to love and help others, to not be shot with an arrow, and so on. In addition to pointless and dangerous desires, there are many wholesome, healthy, good desires. You have to take in the breadth of Buddhism's teachings, not just isolated snippets, and use your own judgment to perceive the bigger picture, come to your own conclusions, apply your conclusions to real life, and see what you get. Dogmatism and trust are joined in a zero-sum game. A religion's dogmatism shrinks in direct relation to how much it trusts you to think for yourself. Buddhism has faith in you, rather than demanding that you have faith in it. It trusts you to create and test your own conclusions and not just recite and obey isolated scriptural snippets out of context. Which snippet is most salient to a given situation, most in keeping with the intent of the snippet when it was given? Which snippets must be considered at the same time? What non-snippet larger principle? What non-snippet larger principle pertains? These are questions for you to answer as best you can and test out by employing your answers in real-world scenarios. I want to add here that an important moment for me was when I realized that parables and proverbs do not actually contain wisdom. They contain reminders of wisdom. But the actual wisdom is knowing when they matter. Because Robert Frost was right when he said that he was right to take the road less traveled. Matter or relevant? I'm not sure what you mean, but hopefully I can clear it up by continuing. Robert Frost says to take the road less traveled, and he's right. But most of the time, if you see that you are doing something differently from everybody else, chances are you're probably missing information. You're probably not clued into something that everybody else has figured out. Most of the time. Are parables teaching wisdom when the parable matters or when the parable is truly relevant? I think I'm trying to say they're not always relevant, but they do matter. Like, not every. Most parables and proverbs that stand the test of time are correct some of the time. You'd agree with that? Cool, yeah. I think that's an important part of it. Like, there aren't many universal truths, because life is hard. And the value of proverbs isn't that they're always true. The value of proverbs is that when your thinking aligns with a proverb, you're like, well, maybe this isn't so crazy after all. Parables are brought up to make a point when it's relevant, and since parables are longer than proverbs, it's harder to misinterpret them. Like when truth is relative as perception is reality. Yeah. Most proverbs are taken from parables, and we have already discussed the trouble therein. Stoicism also has anti-desire snippets. For example, quote, freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it. Epictetus. But we again must caution ourselves against a too small sampling of what a tradition has to say. Like Buddhism, Stoicism relies on you to look at more than one snippet at a time, keep each in its context, keep them in context of each other, exercise your responsibility to draw and apply conclusions, and learn from the results of doing that. We already noted that well-directed desire is fine, and even inescapable. In fact, the above quote paradoxically recommends that we desire to eliminate desire. Ambition is a strong desire that often takes an evil form. Desire for personal gain at the expense of people, principles, or objectives that one should value more. But there is also such a thing as altruistic, well-directed ambition. For example, helping more people to be well-housed, fed, educated, and healthy is very ambitious and the opposite of evil. The Bible used parables a lot, and then the priest would then homily? Like comfy homily? Sorry, I'm having trouble here. Yeah. I actually, although I have not read the New Testament, I've heard many snippets from it, unfortunately, snippets, again, out of context, but I just think it's funny that there are so many cases where someone will come up to Jesus Christ and be like, man, this one thing's just really bugging me, and Jesus is like, hold on, I've got a story about that. And I feel like if I were an apostle, I would be like, brother, you know I love you, but sometimes I am not in the mood. Oh, homily is a Catholic version of a sermon. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, and that's a common use of scripture is to, I mean, I think very few churches will just like read scripture and be like, well, that's self-explanatory. See you next week. Like, yeah, it's common to, in service, talk about why these points matter, and, you know, different religions and different churches among different religions will have different levels of extremity in how narrow or rigid their interpretation is. But the snippet problem, I think my dad here is more talking about just daily life and casual conversation, and like pocket knowledge rather than serious consideration. You zoned out during most priests' homily. Usually 180 degrees off in another. Yeah, twist and pervert and adulterate to mean what they want. Exactly. Like blood is thicker than water. That's a goofy one. You guys probably know this. I'm sure you know it, Poetic. But I think it's common knowledge at this point. I mean, I learned it from a meme, but that the full saying is actually the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. So it means the opposite of what people use it to mean. Anyway. They were lazy to learn it in Greek and understand the connotation of the ancient world. Yeah. You would think that, like, I'm not gonna say that I have ever tried or even considered learning, learning Greek or any ancient or dead language to better understand scripture, but I'm also not religious. You would think that if there is one book that holds all of the most important things to all of human life, past, present, and future, maybe it's worth learning the language of the original text. Maybe. If your faith is so strong. Good old Winnie the Pooh, that's my scripture right there. I love Buddhism, yet even with thousands of hours of study, I am not raised in the languages, so will never fully understand true... Well, yeah, that makes sense. And that is sad, but there's also nothing wrong with it, and it doesn't mean that you're not relatively an expert in it. It just means that you are respecting the limits of your experience, and that's important and humble and great. I think the less somebody is able to acknowledge their blind spots, the more they have, and deep down they know that, and they're ashamed of it. Because that's the only justification I can think of for hiding that you don't know what you're talking about. It is why one of the greatest wisdom of the Al-Quran was it must be written in Arabic. That's incredible! I'm sure many people see that as gatekeeping, but no, with texts that ancient and important, they shouldn't be translated, or they should only be translated in very scholarly settings with explicit disclaimers. Because there's no such thing as a one-to-one translation. People who don't study languages don't know that. It's weird that people who don't study languages don't know that, but there's no such thing as a one-to-one translation. Here we are. Buddha set out to determine the cause and cure for all human suffering. If that is not extremely ambitious, I don't know what is. Healthy ambitions are not pursued for personal glory or gluttony, but to do actual good, and without imposing an inappropriate cost on self, others, or principles or objectives that are also important. When Buddha became enlightened, he did not evaporate his way out of existence, nor did he actively take his own life, nor passively starve himself to death because there was nothing left for him to gain from this life. He chose to teach others for as long as he could, and spent 45 years doing so before dying of natural causes. We need context for any and all translations. Yep. It's not that ancient, not just honest. I'll be honest. Whenever I say ancient, I'm just talking about like before 1600. I know that's completely not fair. But I do not I'm not much of a history buff, and I have a very poor internalization of the timeline of human history. Like I know the landmark events in it, but like it's always unreal to me to think that like in the time when Jesus Christ and his apostles were active, the ancient history Queen Victoria. But like I incorrectly think of the time that Jesus Christ was alive as being ancient. It's not. But like to remember that is dramatically closer to today than to the dawn of recorded history. I mean, ancient Greece and ancient Egypt were just as remote and removed from Jesus Christ as from us, really. Yeshua ben David? I don't know. Is that actually what Jesus Christ's name was? Then yes, that's who I mean. Yeah, obviously not in a linear sense. It's not like these last 2,000 years didn't happen. But what I mean is, like, from a cultural perspective, like, ancient Greece and ancient Egypt were just as alien in 33 AD as they are now. Ben, son of David. Got it. Got it. I didn't know that. Joseph? His father's name was David? Like I see how Yeshua became Jesus, but Joshua and David are both different Hebrew names. His father's name, if you are Christian, was Jehovah. Oh, that's where Jehovah's Witness comes from? Okay, that makes sense. Kind of. Anywho. That is, he desired to... Oh. Actually, wait. How are you hearing me? There are ads right now. At least it's telling me there are ads right now. Are there not ads right now? House of David, yes, because his human father wasn't of the House of David. Oh! Okay, got it. Now I understand. I didn't realize we were talking about God. I thought we were talking about his human father. Got it. Got it. Got it. Yeah, that's the funniest thing. There was no prophecy. In fact, I remember some scholar at some point saying that the closest thing there is in the Bible to mention of a virgin birth is like there's something that's been appropriated as like predicting the coming of Christ, saying like, once there is a virgin birth, like all your problems will be gone. And there's this one interpretation that's like that was just a priest telling this guy like, hey, you you see that pregnant woman over there, because virgin is mistranslated from something that could also just mean like young woman. By the time she has her child, you won't even be thinking about what's got you down today. Like that's all he could have been saying. What does a census have to do with it? Like genuinely asking. Anyway, I will continue. Um, Buddha desired to teach others, and for that, oh, sorry. Oh, Bethlehem. Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so much of it is, and then he was actually born on Christmas or in 0 AD, so it's all, it's all. um. Buddha desired to teach others, and for that reason desired to live, and for that reason desired to eat, and so on. There's no banishment of desire in Buddhism, only of desire that is misdirected or inappropriately intense. Well-directed desire, attachment, and striving are good and necessary, not un-Buddhist. Note, too, that because Buddha chose to remain alive, he accepted that he would be subject to more dukkha. As he said, there is no such thing as life without dukkha. He was surely sometimes hungry, sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes tired, sometimes not in a state of nirvana for one reason or another. He presumably did not desire to have more dukkha, but he was willing to have it in order to fulfill what he did desire, helping others. All Buddhist teachers have in common that they desire and strive to be further along on the path to enlightenment than they currently are. All of them have in common that they desire and strive to help other people. There is attachment and desire and striving all over well-lived Buddhist lives. Buddhist monks and nuns are required to live modestly, selflessly, and in most sects, celibate, which might sound like a banishment of desire. They purportedly do this without suffering a banishment of desire because what they most desire is to pursue spiritual development and acts of service without the competition for their time and attention that would arise if they were also pursuing sex, romance, family, possessions, privileged circumstances, and status. So they have not banished desire. They have approved desires. Buddhadasa Bhikkhu addresses this in his Handbook for Mankind, and is not alone in his thinking. He uses the terms discrimination and goodwill, good judgment and intent, to refer to desiring to do good for others without interest in earning points with other people, with ourselves, or with regard to karma or any other objective. We should strive to have and act on We should strive to have and act on well-directed desires and attachments while minimizing misdirection. We should not outlaw passion, but do our best to act with calm, equanimity, and wisdom, even when passionately motivated. How powerful a combination is that? Don't try to annihilate the feelings denoted by words like desire, attachment, and striving. Don't seek inhuman perfection in all you do or in anything you do. Just move in the direction of operating in the healthiest way you can as often as you can. Keep moving again and again in that direction, all your life. Sometimes you'll passively forget to do this, or even actively fail. That's part of being human. Just take notice and get back on the path. Ideals are for setting direction, not for measuring success. Use them as guides, not as yardsticks. An idea that I find helpful is enchantment, or being under the spell of your desires, or enthralled. A healthy desire to feed one's family is different from being enchanted by luxurious dining. Even enjoying luxurious dining is different from being enchanted by it. Enjoyment, even intense enjoyment, is fine. It's a wonderful part of life. Being under the spell of, controlled or enslaved by, punished by the absence of, is dukkha, and a path to more dukkha. Allegedly, at a certain party, Kurt Vonnegut told Joseph Heller that their host made more money in one day than Heller had earned from years of royalties on his very successful novel and derived movie Catch-22. Thinking their host's desires insatiable, Heller reportedly replied, "Yes, but I have something he will never have. Enough." Quote, "Not what we have, but what we enjoy constitutes our abundance." Epicurus. I'm married, I'm not allowed to be enchanted by anything or desire in but Jesus. I don't know if that's true. Once again, it is not our circumstances, but our response to our circumstances. She's 5? She's 5'2", okay. I don't know what that has to do with it. My advice is to enjoy things as fully as you can without becoming enslaved by them, without placing them above your own or someone else's well-being, without the result of giving too little time and attention to other things that also matter. Traditional Buddhism is much more cautious than I am about avoiding any level of attachment to frivolous pleasures. I think life is short and difficult, so enjoy what you can when you can, responsibly. My advice is harder to live by because it requires more judgment and self-control, while greater restrictions require less. I think a broader range of enjoyments is worth the challenge, even knowing we will sometimes get it wrong. Additionally, the combination of enjoying and navigating enjoyment's dangers presents us with a rich environment for learning about our evolving values and the ongoing relationship between our values and our actions. If we let it, it also teaches us compassion for what it may be like for others to deal with the same challenge. We all have only so much time and attention to spread around. Traditional Buddhism... I'd like to move away from where this chat is going. Thank you. We all have only so much time and attention to spread around. Traditional Buddhism, like almost all religions, recommends that we shift hard to the side of minimizing desire and pleasure. I recommend that we seek a productive balance between pleasure and obligation, fun and sober activities, and note that our personal development tends to benefit from exposure to the whole spectrum from sorrow to the mundane to the joyous. Exploring one's relationship with one's desires is an inescapable part of becoming enlightened. Becoming increasingly enlightened has among its effects a change in the objects and intensities of one's desires. Pay attention. Expect change. Embrace it. Don't let anyone fault you for evolving. As repeatedly noted above, not all desire is bad. Here's another example. Just as there is no life without dukkha, there is no life without conflict. By definition, there are competing desires in conflict. Some conflict is inevitable, some conflict is good, and some conflict is morally necessary. A healthy desire to oppose evil or to provide protection is not the same thing as spoiling for a fight or being selfish, brutish, or unjust. How will we get better at bringing conflict to productive outcomes if we begin by pretending we can make all the causes of conflict simply disappear? We must learn to distinguish between different types of desire and actively pursue the good ones. Despite Buddhism's emphasis on compassion and peaceful means, well-directed conflict is not un-Buddhist. As you would expect, action on behalf of a just cause is an encouraged form of conflict. We are not called upon to tolerate any abuse at any cost. We are not called upon to witness other people's suffering and do nothing about it. To the contrary, We are called upon to notice when objection and possibly even physical force are needed to stop something wrong. Buddhism calls on us to employ compassionate and peaceful means to the best of our ability, even when in conflict. Quote, peace does not mean an absence of conflicts. Differences will always be there. Peace means solving these differences through peaceful means, through dialogue, education, knowledge, and through humane ways. His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. The martial art of Kung Fu was developed by Chinese Chan Buddhist monks in the late 6th century to defend themselves and their temple. Chinese Chan Buddhism is the immediate precursor to Japanese Zen Buddhism. As in other martial arts, Kung Fu practitioners strive to have equanimity and compassion even in combat. A clear, undisturbed, highly alert, yet not anxious mind gives them the best chance to prevail in combat. It also gives them the best chance to honor the Buddhist value to do so, to do no avoidable harm, specifically to avoid doing any more harm to their adversaries than is necessary to stop their misguided behavior. Avoid conflict by being skillful in understanding others and finding common ground and mutual benefit, but also be skilled in conflict when that is the best alternative that is actually available. You are under no obligation to be abused by others, and neither is anyone else. From correcting simple mistakes to combating outright evil, some things entail conflict. Engaging in conflict is sometimes the morally best path available. Engaging in conflict humanely is the most Buddhist way, the most humanistic way, and the pragmatically most effective way to do it. Something I meant to ask before, have you read Siddhartha? No, I haven't. I'd like to. I have actually not read much nonfiction, period. You must. Okay, I'll check them out. I'm sure my dad will be eager to lend me copies. Vanergit? Oh, sorry. I thought you meant Siddhartha, like Buddha. Is that a novel? Kurt Vonnegut? I've read Kurt Vonnegut. I read Slaughterhouse-5 anyway. I don't think I've read Hess. Oh, Hess wrote Siddhartha. Okay. Got it. Yes, I will check that out then. But I'm going to stop there for tonight because that was the end of that section, and I'm pretty sure the next one's... How long is the next one? Long. Yeah, this is like starting a whole new theme. So, putting the book down for tonight. But I'm really glad for everyone who came here, anyone who's watching the VOD, thank you. It means a lot that you guys are finding value in something that my dad and I find really important. Even if you're just casually listening, I appreciate you being here. And thank you, Pedro and Poetic, for the very engaging conversations. I enjoyed this a lot. Normally I stream video games. Right now I'm playing Link's Awakening. But once a month, I read from Eat the Strawberries. I might consider doing more frequent Eat the Strawberries streams at some point, because doing the math, I might be reading these for like another, 3 years if I keep going at this rate. It's a long book. We'll see. But, yeah, normally I stream Sundays at 11 a.m. Pacific time. About 100 books in my list. Honestly, seems a well thought out book, a good conception without a deep dive into dogma. Yeah, I think it's cool. Read the book while playing video games. I don't request that anybody buy the book because I don't feel comfortable aggressively selling anything. Oh, thank you, Pedro, for the snooze. Good timing. Yeah, I I think the only thing I've ever said, like, you have no excuse, you must do this, is Celeste. Because I'm like, look, it's got accessibility options, it's got a beautiful story, it is, like, you can get a refund if you aren't having fun within the first 2 hours. Get Celeste. Um, but in general, I find it hard to recommend books just because everybody recommends books and everybody has a long reading list, and I know I get stressed out. I'm going on a massive tangent. This is totally unnecessary. The point is, if you'd like a copy of my dad's book, there's a link in the chat, and I'll put one in the description of the VOD too. I hope you guys had fun, and I do not have a stream this coming weekend, but after that we will be back to our normal schedule. So thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around. Been put on a book budget. Any more books, and I moved it to the patio. Sounds like some families I know with board games, to be honest. Alrighty. See you later, guys. Be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.